Alrighty, today's Tuesday Tidbit is, can I use assets as income? The short answer is probably. So there's a couple of different paths a lender can pursue. Number one is if you have a history of receiving dividends, interest, or capital gains income, a lender can potentially use those assets as income using those various income sources. What a lender is going to do is they're going to look at your tax returns for the last couple of years, make sure that you have a 2-year history of that income source, and then we have to verify that you have enough assets left over to support that income. Capital gains only exist when you sell assets. So we need to make sure that you still have assets going forward to support that same income history. It's definitely up to lenders' discretion as to whether or not you meet that requirement or not. Another very common scenario, and this one comes up all the time, especially when you're retired. There's 2 times in life where it's hardest to get a mortgage. One is when you're newly self-employed. Second is when you're newly retired. Because when you're newly retired, you're probably not receiving all your 401k income, your IRA income that you likely will be later on in life. You typically survive the first few years of retirement using assets that you've already saved up, right? So looking at that scenario specifically, a lender can potentially use assets as a source of income, specifically retirement assets. If couple different ways you can go about it. One, you set up recurring distributions from that 401k, from that IRA. A lender could then use that income as income going forward. That's probably the most aggressive route because we can really scale up those distributions, show recurring distributions, show one receipt prior to closing, and then use that as an income source going forward. It's also a little bit of a hassle because you have to set up recurring distributions. Now, if you were to cancel recurring distributions after closing, I would not know about it. Read between the lines there. Cool. So the other option is we can simply look at your assets as a whole. Hey, great. How much do you have in brokerage accounts, retirement accounts, all that, and try to calculate an income stream from there. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have slightly different guidelines on this, but generally speaking, they will let us take those assets over 240 months and use that as an income source going forward. Elevations, since we do a lot of portfolio loans, we can actually get even more aggressive with that. There's definitely a type of loan out there that we can do where we can take those assets divided over 120 months, it's a lot more aggressive, and use that as an income stream going forward. The big advantage of doing that instead of the recurring distributions is you don't actually have to receive any money from it. We're simply looking at how much income do we think these assets could create. So a lot of different routes we can go. A lot of it's going to depend on which entity we have to look at. How old are you? Are the assets in retirement accounts versus non-retirement accounts? And what type of loan are we ultimately doing at the end of the day? I hope that's helpful. I know it's confusing. Let me know if you have any questions.